They served on our behalf, but have we done enough for them when they come home? It's popular now to support the troops, but what do they really need from us? And how can we best help different generations of veterans? Tonight, if war is hell, how is it coming home? Stay tuned.
And on Stay Tuned, you drive the discussion. We bring local experts, journalists, and civic leaders together to have tough conversations for a stronger St. Louis. Tweet us your insights on tonight's topic, and you've got a seat at the table. With a few national experts and a panel of community members, this is the show bringing more light and less heat to the issues that matter. So stay tuned.
Three veterans at the table tonight to start us off and talk about veterans and the issues they are facing. We'll introduce them first. David Rogers, a fellowship program director with The Mission Continues, founded here in St. Louis as a nationwide organization. We'll talk more about that tonight. Jay Harden, Vietnam veteran, and you're a writer as well. And Russ Whitener, board member, POW MIA Museum at Jefferson Barracks. Right. Gentlemen, like we just said, if war is hell, how is it coming home?
Coming home is great, you know. It's but there's no transition. You know, you come from, in my case, I came from Vietnam, and 2 days later I was at home.
You were happy to be coming home.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But
there was no transition there. You know, you were in one world and then you went to another world.
And what was the biggest challenge of that? What do you remember being the hardest?
Just you're reacquainting yourself with all the sights. You know, you're not used to them. You know, you've been gone so long. You know, different. Back then, you know, there were new restaurants coming up, fast food restaurants and things like that. You know, and it's just.
The world had changed.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you know, you're just amazed, you know, and you can't believe it, you know. You've been gone for a year, and then you come back, and I mean, it's great to be back, but you know, it's not like it was when you left it.
You know, those of us who haven't served can only imagine how hard it is to transition into military life. What's it like transitioning? We'll stick in the Vietnam era for a minute. What was it like transitioning back for you?
Well, you think you can come home again. That's the illusion, and you can't.
What do you mean?
Well, it's I was naive and thought that I could, after a war, return to my former life, and that's a dream that can't be fulfilled. It's like once you lose your virginity, you can't reclaim it. So coming back from war is impossible. So you just deal with it. I was lucky in the Air Force because I came back as a unit. My whole bomb wing deployed and then came back together. You guys came back as individual people, as cannon fodder, interchangeable units in a war machine. So I came back as a unit, and we had a parade, we had a band. My wife was in the stands, pregnant, and they clapped, and we had a small celebration, and then I went directly back into flying missions, nuclear training missions. So I had it much better.
There was still structure.
It was structured. We were part of SAC, which we considered to be the elite part of the Air Force at that time. So we were very professional. We had a clear mission in Vietnam: take off here on time, land here on time, refuel here on time, this target on time. And if you did that, you succeeded. So it's very clear when we were successful.
David, you're nodding your head. We talk about how different it is today, but maybe some similarities in what you're hearing.
It sounds like it was just yesterday, you know. But 1 year ago today, I was boots on the ground in Afghanistan. I was helping coalition partners to usher in the first democratic election in Afghanistan's history. And I just returned 5 months ago. And so, you know, I faced challenges upon my reintegration. I'm serving in the Air Force Reserve still. And, you know, what you had said about returning back, and, you know, there's not much. You're immediately a civilian. That was my experience as a reservist. And so I came back, and I had just a few short hours of administrative duties, and then I was home. And so, you know, I had to come to terms with the challenges that I had seen, the challenging situations that I had encountered in Afghanistan, and being home again, you know, and coming to terms with what it was like to be safe, to 1 minute feel that, you know, my life could be in danger at any moment, and to come home and to hear a loud noise and to know that that's not a suicide bomber blowing up, that that's not an enemy rocket exploding near me. And it took some adjustments, and it will take adjustments. You know, one thing that I've learned through my work at the Mission Continues and speaking with veterans like you is that, you know, we can reintegrate quickly. We can reintegrate and find a job, maybe get enrolled in education, but that long-term role in the community, feeling a part of the community, connected to the community, coming to terms with the experiences you've had, that can take a lifetime. And so I'm honored to be able to work at the Mission Continues to help veterans to reintegrate quickly, make sure that we owe this generation of veterans more than we have in the past. We help them to reintegrate and make a difference and do so more quickly. We owe that to them.
Are we done taking, we talk about taking care of our veterans today, are we done taking care of veterans of a previous generation?
Not at all.
There's work to be done?
Very much so. The healthcare system today, and I'm part of it, I meet weekly in a therapy group for Vietnam veterans dealing with traumatic stress. The system is adversarial. And most of the veterans who need help don't get it because the system is adversarial and it's too difficult. If you don't have somebody helping you as an advocate, either a lawyer or a veteran service organization or somebody, you're going to throw up your hands even if you try. But most veterans know what's going on in the VA system, and they just do not even attempt to get help.
And Jay, to even actually talk to that point, you know, one of the blessings for veterans today is there's so many resources available to veterans. There's so much available to them, and it'd be easy to take advantage of all the resources, but it's finding the resources, navigating the system, and finding that resource that can help get them to that sustainable point in their life. That's a challenge, finding that right resource.
Were there resources, Russ, when you came home? Did you feel like, did someone say, this is where you go when you need X, Y, and Z?
No,
Was there a parade?
Are you kidding me? I got a welcome home from my wife and my mom and dad, and that was it. You know, out at Lambert Air Force. And I was glad to get that, you know. I didn't expect a big parade or, you know, whatever. I was just happy to be home, you know. And, you know, I had a pretty good homecoming because when I was on the airplane, from Seattle to St. Louis, I happened to be on the airplane with the Canucks hockey team. And one of the players came up and just as nice as he could be, he offered to leave me tickets and you know, at the gate that night, and I said, I don't think so. I said, I appreciate it, but you know, I got to spend time with my family, you know. And he said, well, you know, but
An international welcome home.
yeah, yeah.
But as I was asking you before, was there any system? Did you feel like there was any system in place?
No. Once I left, I didn't see any assistance out there whatsoever, you know. And I finally did find assistance through the vet center right down the road down here at Olive and Huntley Drive. I've been going down there for 9 years, I guess, yeah. And I've got more out of that than anything else, you know. We meet, for a long time, we met every week, and then now we only meet every other week. And, you know, we discuss issues, and it really helped, you know. You realize that what you were dealing with inside, so was these other guys, you know. You weren't the only one.
You said you started that 9 years ago.
Yeah.
You came home in 1970.
I came home in 1970, and for
1970.
so there was a lot of years there that you know, I told myself I was all right. I wasn't, you know.
That doesn't go away. I'll tell you, it took me a few months, right? You know, things seemed okay.
Yeah.
Seemed like a little different person, and then I noticed, you know, after a few months, I'm not quite the same person.
Yeah.
And so
Well, it changes you. That's for sure.
It does.
You know, you leave part of yourself there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there's always going to be a part of you there. It don't make any difference. You know, you can be home, but you still got part of you there. You know.
Gentlemen, let's pause for 1 second because we want to get folks in on this conversation online with the hashtag Stay Tuned STL. We appreciate all of your time. We appreciate your service as well, but don't go too far. We're not done with you yet. Let's take a look online. We'll keep the conversation we had going, but we'll try to talk more solutions a little bit now too, if that's where it takes us. We've added a couple of folks to the table. Chris Figura is a financial stability counselor, Project Hero. That's through the St. Patrick's Center. Jay's still with us. Russ is still with us. And then Jim Craig, associate teaching professor and department chair at University of Missouri, St. Louis. The two gentlemen that just joined us, also veterans. Before we move on, anything that sparked anything with you in that last conversation about that transition or lack thereof when you come home?
Well, I thought it was a very interesting comment from the reserve side that we have this feeling these days that the Army or the military has figured this thing out, and we're moving in and out of theater in units, and we're working well together, and we're doing some cohesion and some training before we release people. But if you're a reservist, that may or may not be the case. Reservists are going in as individuals and still coming out as individuals. Now, there are more structures to help them later, but they still have to figure it out alone, which is not good.
And they may have picked up and kind of left in the middle of something at the same time.
Well, clearly, reservists have other work that they're doing in their lives, and they're asked to stop, take on this very difficult task, and then somehow return within weeks to do what they were doing. It's tough on the brain.
And jump on the treadmill that's already running when
Right,
they get back.
right.
Anything that you thought of when you were with that first conversation about that transition? Anything
Yeah,
that,
kind of what I've noticed is with what I do, we try and find available resources for whether it be Vietnam returnees or the Iraq, Afghanistan, and I've noticed the VA has brought in these readjustment counselors. So we use quite a bit the Vet Center in East St. Louis, and they have people identified there to go out to the different, whether it's Scott Air Force Base or the VFWs, to talk to the people that are just getting ready to get out, transition out, and trying to let them know the resources that are available. I know when I left the military, nobody really kind of helped you navigate anything, and that's what Jim and I were talking about, is there's just a lack of communication between getting out, becoming a civilian, what do I do next? Who's there to help me? What resources are there? And then you tend to get bombarded with what he called the goodwill, goodwill people trying to help you. You just get confused, frustrated.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Is goodwill that's no good?
No, I think it's great, but it's, you get bombarded with my buddy told me this information, and it may not all be true. They're trying to help you, and then eventually you get so confused that you finally just give up and walk away, and I'm going to have to try and handle this stuff on my own.
And all of you are playing some role in helping your fellow veterans. Does the fact that you served, I got to believe that gives you a heart to want to help your fellow man and fellow woman?
Sure. I never want them to go through, being confused like that. We see it all the time with St. Patrick's Center, the homeless veterans coming in, and just not knowing that there's these resources out there. My goal is to make sure that doesn't happen, to help a fellow veteran. That's why I do what I do.
Jay, tell me what you do, because you use the writing skill. There's a creative element. Tell me.
Yes, that's helped me more than the great doctors at the VA, and much more than the prescription medication that they offer me, which it only treats my symptoms, really. It doesn't cure anything. The VA will tell me, and has told me to my face, we cannot cure and will not attempt to cure PTSD, but we will treat your symptoms around the edges. And that's not enough for me. So I write, and I go to group every week with veterans like myself from the Vietnam era, and that's where my healing has taken place. Is these guys have helped me work on my stuff, and I've helped them, and then I write about it, and I've been told that my writing also reaches veterans, and they go, oh, he knows. He got it. And that gives them some hope, right? And it's healing for me. So I write, not because I'm a great writer, but I write out of, I need to write.
You got something to say.
I need to put these stories down, and when I put them down, they disappear from my nightmares. It's like I've imprisoned them in black ink on a piece of paper, and then I can let it go. I can't quite explain that, but then I put it aside, and I'll read it a week later, and I'll go, wow, who wrote that? I didn't write that. I don't remember writing that, but that's true. So for me, that's my tool. And I am trying very actively to get away from medication because it just dulls my creativity. And I don't handle side effects very well, and all these drugs have side effects. And they're intended for temporary use while you work on the core problem, right? At least that's my understanding.
I'm just going to follow up, because I think that this idea that you can't be, quote unquote, cured from PTSD is changing. The VA is, and you're not going to catch me bashing the VA, especially the St. Louis mental health side, because I think they're doing great work. But there are new therapies that they're working with, cognitive processing therapy and prolonged exposure, which seems to be showing that people are, if the word isn't cured, they're at least fully functional, and they're definitely changed. I don't think you can expect to be the same person you were before, but they're moving
That's
off
the brain
medications.
delusion.
Yeah.
I think of what it is, it's not a cure, it's an understanding.
Yeah, maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, it's an
Well, it's dealing
understanding
with
of why you feel and think the way you do.
But they also
You know.
move into treatment expecting that there will be an outcome rather than just, I'm going to continue to put Band-Aids.
Yeah, well,
on.
it's
And,
not an overnight cure.
No,
It's
no one
not
said
an
that.
overnight cure. There's
This
a
is a
lot of
process.
issues to deal with.
You are passionate about the community that you have around the VFW, American Legion.
I'm American Legion, VFW, and I'm president of the chapter of our Vietnam veterans.
And if you may not always be, or even ever, writing it down and imprisoning some of those things on a piece of paper, but is there some of that therapy, so to speak, that comes from those relationships?
When we get together, it's like we understand each other. You know, it's we don't have to explain ourselves. We know who we are. We know who they are, and you know, we don't go into any questions of, you know, we'll you know, ask who they were with and what years and that. But I think we meet every Wednesday morning, and there's a lot of more kidding going back and forth between each, you know, us than anything else. You know, if you got a thin skin, that's not the group to be around. You know?
Oh, I think you said it earlier. It's comforting knowing you're not the only one.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, there's a lot of new returning veterans that feel like they're the only one. So get in those groups. We call it group therapy. You're doing a form of therapy with your writing. We call it journaling.
Yeah.
Not internalizing a whole lot, letting it out, not holding it in. It's important.
Is there a difference, or what is the difference? You're working through the St. Patrick's Center. Individuals that externally may have some of the same challenges. One's a veteran and one's not. What's the difference if you're up against a situation of homelessness or anything on the list?
I think resources, there's, you know, a whole lot more resources available to the veteran that we can kind of guide them to, more so than the non-veteran. And that,
Does the veteran seek help as well?
not as easily as the non-veteran would.
And why is that?
And I think that's more of what, you know, when we go through what we're told, we don't want to be weak. We don't want to admit that we have a problem. You know, I think they're getting a little bit better nowadays with that.
I think when the veteran comes home, he says, "I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm all right."
He wants to believe that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I can handle it myself. I
Yeah.
can do this. I don't
Yeah.
want to be weak.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, all of you have changed, not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not-
Yeah, the whole world has changed.
World has changed.
It's everything you know. If everything you know when you come back is different than the way you left it,
Right.
it's easy to think that. And then you can think that for a long time. You said that you came home in 1970,
Right.
and 9 years ago. Do you see that a lot?
That's very common, very common. Yeah, we see that all the time. You know, we have a client that, gosh, I think he got back 67 or 68, and he's just now starting to talk about things that he saw over in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And it took almost a year of working with him before he really started opening up. And again, it was his philosophy was, well, I didn't get hit by a bullet. You know, yeah, they were going off around me. I didn't get hit, so I'm not a combat veteran. And it's getting him to understand, okay, maybe you're not combat, let's try the wartime veteran verbiage. He was more open to being called a wartime veteran than a combat veteran. And he's starting to open up now, finally.
Because there's some sacrifice, I got to believe, in picking up and going to the other side of the world,
Sure.
regardless of whether you were ever shot at.
Clearly, yeah, there is. But I think what you find oftentimes in veterans is there's always someone else who's had it a little harder than you, and so you don't want to put the mantle of whatever that entitlement is onto your own shoulders in most cases. So the veteran who served in Okinawa or on the DMZ in Korea will say, well, you know what, I'm not really a veteran right now. In fact, at the university, we have people who won't check the veteran box if they haven't deployed when they apply. And so
Really?
when I'm working with veterans and I meet somebody and they tell me about their service and I say, I never heard of you before, who are you? Oh, I was in the Marines in Okinawa. You're a veteran. Let's move on. Let me introduce you to some more veterans here at our Veterans Center so we can have that social space and you can make a connection here or there. And,
I was asked and advised to join this Veterans Therapy group, and I said, well, I'm not worthy to do that because I never was on the ground in Vietnam. So I really, not really a Vietnam veteran, and I didn't feel like I would be welcome or that I even belonged. Plus, I was an officer, and they were all Marines and grunts and combat infantrymen. But I was finally persuaded, well, you go once and you don't have to come back, right? So I went, and I was very comfortable. And the guys told me, hey, you saved my life. You saved my buddy's life. And we had this bond that I didn't really think existed. And that was 7 years ago, and I'm still going every week. And that's the high point of my week. And these guys, they would die for me, and I would die for them. And I'm also going to live for them, okay? That's what it comes down to. So I am so thankful that I got into this crew under duress and was welcomed.
It's interesting that you say that because I was in the artillery, and you know, we'd fire missions, and you know, and very seldom would we ever get any report back of what results we had. And once I get around these other veterans, you know, guys, grunts, they were out in the field, you know, they'd say, boy, you guys saved our butts. You saved our butts. We were getting, you know, hammered, and if it wasn't for the artillery, you know, I don't know what we'd have done. You know, and I go, wow.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, you may never know who you've helped tonight. I appreciate
Yeah.
your honesty and your time tonight. Let's take one more break real quick. Check out hashtag Stay Tuned STL. Don't go anywhere, guys. Chris Figueroa with the Project Hero through the St. Patrick's Center is still with us, and joining us now is Kimberly Beck, Social Services Director at the Salvation Army, St. Louis region. Are you hearing anything from these gentlemen that sounds familiar?
Everything rings true, everything they said, and I feel very honored to be here with all these veterans. I am a military brat, the proud daughter of a Vietnam vet, and a military spouse. So my husband served 20 years in the Air Force. And the things that they're saying just around the table as veterans are the things that I've heard from my husband, my father-in-law, my grandfather. And as a professional working with veterans, it's what I've heard.
And you've served too, let's not forget
Well,
that.
yes, I'm a military spouse.
You
I
traveled the
served-
world.
I traveled the world with my husband. We spent 14 years overseas consecutive, 6 years in Japan, 4 years in Germany, and 4 years in England. So the stress of military life definitely impacts families and family members. So I served, and as a civilian, supporting the veterans overseas for Army Community Service and with the Services Department for the Air Force. So yes, I've served as well.
What did you make of the statement that, well, I was an officer?
You know what intrigued me was when I was working for the Army, for Army Community Service, I was the transition assistance counselor. And the officers had the most difficulty transitioning back over to the, to civilian life. So, there was a distinction between being an officer and being enlisted. And so because they were separate, I agree. He probably felt like I don't belong here. And No, they had some special issues, and I found myself working harder to help them than it was to help those who were, you know, like you said, infantry and that, to transition back. I am so excited about hearing that there's that support and camaraderie that's helping these veterans to find the space to transition safely back over here. I was listening over in the room, and I know at Salvation Army, one of the things we pride ourselves on in our veterans residence is that 48 veterans, male and female, have a space to come and sit in our community room and share experiences. And it's one of the things that's really helping them to overcome the challenges and barriers they face. So hearing that there's been a group that has helped some of our Vietnam veterans, you know, officers and enlisted together in the same room, not separated the way we see it, you know, in the military, that's phenomenal. And that's what the Salvation Army works for. We want all of our veterans to be treated with dignity and find a way to create lasting change, because we know they served our country and we want to serve them and help them feel like, hey, you know, you have the support you need. And I did laugh when I heard about the goodwill and not all help being good help, because that's true. All of those stories about you can go to the Salvation Army, they're going to hook you up and give you everything you need, and we do try to help, but yeah, some of the stories out there are pretty incredible, and not all help and not all information is accurate.
Barracks lawyers.
Yeah, yeah, the barracks lawyers.
You got
yeah.
that one person that knows
That knows it all.
the programs.
Yeah, they
you
owe
know.
you, they're supposed to give you $10,000,
Right.
yeah, that kind of stuff.
Don't say if it's not true tonight.
Right.
Are there people, you know, you talk about the benefits that of these conversations that these gentlemen are having, or these activities that they've found, or these groups and these relationships they've built. Are there a lot of people that have not found it?
Yeah, you asked that question as well. And I think, you know, Chris hit on it when he said, in the military, there's a culture that you do not seek help, because help means weakness. In fact, for the officers that, when I was working in the military, officers were much less likely to come to me for support because it was a mark against their career, even enlisted. So I'm not going to seek support from a therapist or somebody to help me because I can do this on my own. So when they get out of the military, that culture still persists for them in many ways. So some of them don't seek help. And this is particularly true really with our female vets.
What's the difference? What are the unique challenges for female vets?
For female vets, one of the things that was mentioned was, you know, they don't even mark the box to say they're a veteran. Some of them don't feel like they're a veteran and they deserve veteran status. And female veterans, many have experienced military sexual trauma. They want to distance themselves sometimes from the military. So sometimes it's hard to find them. It's hard to, you know, reach out. We have to ask, are you a veteran? And not just are you a veteran, did you serve in the Army, the Air Force, the Marine? You have to ask the questions to get them to finally say,
And there's
oh,
not
yes.
a lot of programs available to the females, as many as there are
Not
for the
as many.
male. With our program, we have a housing program, transitional program that's helped ran by the VA GPD program. We have a women's program for female veterans. We call it VHR. The difference is that's funded by Department of Mental Health, as to where the other one for the men is funded by the VA.
Is this a problem that's going to get worse as more women are serving?
I think the more, you know, they talked about groups. The women are starting to attend the group therapy, and they're seeing and hearing these men talk about, oh, they've got this housing program, they've got dental, they've got, you know, numerous other things. And the females, they don't have the same housing program. A great example is in our GPD program, our 2-year transitional housing program, the men, after they're there for 6 months, they can seek out dental through the VA. The women in the VHR program, that's not available to them because it's not funded by the, help ran by the VA.
And ours is just a little bit different in that our grant per diem program is actually one of the only ones that does service women. So we have a couple of women, but there's not many.
Not as many beds.
Right, there's not as many female vets, not as many beds, but we do have female veterans in our grant per diem program, and we're happy to serve them. And now that there are a few, others are hearing and they're starting to come and inquire, and our funding is through the Veterans Administration, so they do still have access to those medical services and the other benefits that veterans have.
We've talked a lot about the space that's been created, whether it be the kind of the mental space or the relational space, but you guys have created some amazing physical space that you touched on.
Thank you.
Our team went for a visit this week, so let's take a look at what we're talking about that the Salvation Army is pulling off here in St. Louis.
The mission of the Salvation Army is to take that has been broken or marginalized by society and to give individuals the tools that they need to create lasting change in their lives. The Salvation Army has always had at the heartbeat of its mission serving humanity, those who needed us the most.
The motivation for creating the Veterans Residence Apartments was we were next door at the Harbor Light, where we housed 40 veterans in bay-style units, and they had up to 2 years, 24 months, to transition out of that program into housing. And what we were finding was that our veterans had difficulty locating affordable housing. So they would bottleneck, and it would get close to time for them to leave, and they still had no place to go because there was not affordable housing in the area. We wanted to be a part of the solution, and not only build housing for them, but create an opportunity for our veterans to live with dignity.
And what this center does is that really gives them independence day one. As we invest with them and we partner with them and we become an integral part in them creating inside themselves the lasting change that they so desperately need.
What's unique about this building is that it's actually 2 addresses, 2933 Locust and 2935 Locust. 2933 is 24 transitional housing units, and 2935 is 24 permanent supportive housing, which means we have a total of 48 units here at the Veterans Apartment Building. We are perfectly located for veterans. We are just east of John Cochran Medical Center, where most of our veterans receive their medical services, and just west of the Hope Recovery Center, where they receive other additional supports. With the Veterans Apartment Building, we have a multi-purpose room, and in our multi-purpose room, we offer a variety of classes and support groups right here on site. In addition to the multi-purpose room, we also have a computer lab. And we have partnered with other companies like Accenture and the Veterans Hope Recovery Center and the Vet Center. And people come in and provide computer classes, finance classes, a variety of services to help veterans, improve their employability. We have 2 case managers here on site to provide support to the veterans that are here in the building. We have a resident manager that is also a veteran here on site 24/7, so that if there are issues or concerns, we do have staff available to address those. So there's a variety of services, in addition to the fact that we have our substance abuse treatment program right next door, and there's a strong partnership and alliance with that substance abuse treatment facility. The units that are transitional housing units are fully furnished, so we're constantly providing them with the different things they need, from toilet paper to paper towels, whatever they need, until they gain self-sufficiency.
We are helping them to become independent, that we do briefings with families as their loved ones are deployed. We also do debriefings when their families return through veteran services.
We have a heart for serving veterans, and this site is unique because it shows our heart and passion.
Our next trip will have to be
Freedom Place.
Freedom Place. Tell us about that, just in the interest of letting folks know what's available.
Freedom Place is a apartment building that we just opened up in October for our Men in the Hero program. We have 50 of the rooms, brand new facility, single man rooms, brand new furniture, workout room. We've got a nice community room with a TV there for them. We try and do a lot of the group therapy sessions in there, and the men, moving from Washington Avenue where they used to be to this facility, it's been a huge change. The guys seem to really be a lot happier, open up a lot more. The therapy seems to be going a lot better. It's been a great move, fantastic move.
And I just want to make sure we have talked about just kind of the awareness of what's available. What do you want people to know before you leave here tonight?
Well, I know when I transitioned out, like I was saying before, I was inundated with a lot of information. Clearly, when you're getting ready to get out, you're focused on just that, getting out. You have all this coming at you, these different programs. You're tuning a lot of it out. You're ready to move on with your life and get going. What I have seen with the VA, with the vet centers, which is kind of the hidden secret, I think, is they've provided a means. They have what they call the readjustment counselors. They're able to go out there, reach out to the veterans, explain to them the different programs. I was fortunate enough to talk with those guys, and I'm able to bring that information back to my guys. Being a veteran myself, there's still programs out there that I'm unaware of that I'm freshly learning about. So it's nice to be able to have them as a great resource for our program, and that's the East St. Louis Vet Center.
And it's not always a program, sometimes it's an opportunity. Is that fair? That the returning serviceman or woman needs? Well, tell me, the mission continues, it's almost in the name right there. Why is that word mission, why is that so important? What is it about a person who either volunteers to serve, or the characteristic or the personality traits that they develop while serving? What do they need when they come home?
You know, one thing I'll tell you is that it felt so good when I came home, and you know, the first time we landed on U.S. soil, we had so many Americans there, and they were so enthusiastic and so great. You know, they hugged us and they shook our hands, you know, and that was really nice, but it lasts for just a second. And so what's great about being at the Mission Continues is we think that it's important to say thank you to our service members. It's so important, because the guys that went before us, they didn't get that thank you. But at the same time, we believe it's so important to let them know we still need you. And that's a critical part. If I could impart anything on our viewers today, it's just, it's important to thank our veterans, but it's so important to let them know we still need you. And so at the Mission Continues, we give veterans that opportunity to continue that service, to find that new outlet. And so I'll tell you, in the military, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're sweeping dirt in Afghanistan, or it doesn't matter if you're managing millions of dollars of materials or many people. You know that you're contributing to a greater mission. You know that you're doing something extremely important. And when we come home, we don't always have that opportunity. That opportunity is not always there to make that difference. But the Mission Continues, what we've seen is that through community service, we're able to engage veterans in opportunities to make that difference in their communities. You know,
Give them a mission.
Absolutely, absolutely. A great example, just 2 weeks ago, we were down the street in Ferguson. We were in Ferguson at Little Creek Nature Reserve, and it's a nature reserve owned by the Ferguson-Florissant School District. So we had brought 80 veterans into town from all across the country to the start of their Mission Continues fellowships, or as the start of their platoon leadership with Mission Continues. And we brought some local veterans together, and they went to this Little Creek Nature Reserve in a community that's in dire need of love from our community. And they helped to build planter boxes. They built outdoor classrooms. They painted. They built boardwalks around the ponds. We pulled out honeysuckle. We planted 200 trees. And we did this so that we could show the Ferguson community, so we could show the St. Louis community, so that we could show this country that we're ready to make a difference.
Something kicks in when you're given a mission?
Absolutely, and that's our mission. And so through our Mission Continues service platoons, where all across the country, teams of veterans can come together and answer that call, continue their service. They can serve with teams of veterans to attack a unifying mission in a community, to address that mission, to attack that problem, and at the same time improve their own lives.
Do you also need help translating your skills?
Sure.
Because you've learned things that most of the population never will about yourself and actual skills.
And that's where we have a program at St. Patrick's Center. It's the HVRP program, and that's one of the things they do. It's an employment program, is bringing our homeless veterans in there and helping them take these infantry skills and transferring those into civilian jobs. And we've seen a lot of success with that. It's given them the purpose that, hey, you may have swept dirt in Afghanistan. You have leadership ability. Right. You have, you know, a lot of background with being able to maneuver through different areas. You know, it's kind of, you're in the military, you're given that I can take charge of any situation. So, you know, we see a lot of our guys, we're, you know, pushing them into those or getting them into these jobs where they're able to have that ability to have a purpose, have a leadership role, and be able to do something constructive.
Absolutely.
Not just surviving
I
out there on
think
the
it's
streets.
restoring that hope. I think when people sign up, volunteer for the military, they believe they have something to contribute. And sometimes when they come home, they hit a bump in the road, and then they feel like they don't have anything to contribute. So at the Salvation Army, we've really focused on restoring that hope. We believe in the veterans that we serve, and we believe that with a hand up, that's all they need, and they will get back, you know, on their mission, their purpose, and giving them the language to show the world I have transferable skills, leadership skills. I'm regimented, I'm disciplined, you know, I'm dependable. I'm all those things that an employer would want. So, you know, we believe in the veterans that we're serving, and we've shown good success, you know, in
and I
helping
think
them to do that.
Kimberly and I have probably seen it a lot with the substance abuse. The guys come back, they self-medicate, their sense of purpose, they feel worthless. You know, and it's up to us, all of us, to, like you said, welcome them back home.
We've spent a lot of time tonight talking about veterans who have problems and the problems of veterans, and they're very real. But if I could just kind of get a little bit out here, veterans are people, they're Americans. In fact, 9/11 veterans are at the top of the American high school classes. Right? These are the best Americans, and they're not all broken. In fact, the great majority are successful. This is a bell curve, and we love to talk about the ends of the curve, the heroes and the brokens, but the great majority of veterans are just American citizens who have done a job, done it well, come back, had a struggle or two, adapted in some ways, but they come back better, not worse from their service.
You're absolutely
And
right.
it's clear that there's some that need help, and I don't want to denigrate that at all. But I'd like to just say, get to know a veteran. Don't assume that person is a war hero or assume that person is broken, because veterans, especially 9/11 era veterans right now, have to walk this tightrope. Are they going to think I'm a ticking time bomb, or are they going to think I personally captured a platoon of Taliban and I deserve extra awards? No.
Are you guys comfortable with all the times you hear the word hero?
I am uncomfortable with that. I served. I served to the best of my ability. I think I did a good job. I think there are people who deserve that word, and I served with many of them, but it's not me.
It's definitely an overused word.
It's
I mean, it's a
overused.
volunteer force. We chose to go in. For whatever reason, you know, service to the country, maybe some for education. We looked at it as it's our job. It's a job. I'm not a hero. I chose to go in that line of work. That's what I wanted to do. Doesn't make, you know.
And I get that. So I'm not the veteran. But I think for the families that you all are our heroes. You know, some of us lost family members who signed up to be in the military or who were drafted. And so they're our personal heroes. So I don't know how the term is used, but for us, you are our heroes because not everyone stepped up to protect our freedoms. Not everyone signed up to be there on the front lines or to be displaced and live overseas. And I had a chance to witness how some of the Navy guys lived, and that was interesting.
But I wouldn't,
yeah.
I wouldn't subjugate your service right now to what that service is. What you're doing for this community is not in uniform, but it's critically important. And so when we put military service automatically ahead of all other types of service, I think we actually bring it down a peg, right? No.
You're patronizing?
It is, it can be. It isn't always, but it can be patronizing. And if everybody's a hero, nobody is a hero. So I would say people are individuals. You got to deal with people who they are. I would say talk to that veteran. And I would also look at the veteran. This is what we do in our classrooms, and we look at them and say, hey, you got to talk about your service. You can't just sit back and say, no one understands me, and then go have a beer in in the VFW lounge.
You're absolutely right. It's that sharing your story piece that's
You've got
critical.
to share.
That these members of the military are just living members of history. And you know, the more that we can share our story and share the ups and the downs, but share that we're normal people. You know, this hero label, it's tough, right? Because it feels that it distances ourselves from the rest of America. But if we could just share our story, that it's normal people doing normal things, and that's the way that we can help to bring Americans together with our nation's service members.
Let's go back to hashtag stay tuned STL, see what's going on there. And we'll bring everyone else
What is
back.
going on?
"45 years after the Vietnam War, Emmy-winning producer-director Rory Kennedy is exploring the last days in Vietnam. So we hope you'll join us for a free screening in the Public Media Commons on this Sunday from 7 to 9 to watch the Academy Award-nominated film in its entirety. You can go to 9net.org to register. And if you haven't seen the Public Media Commons, this is a great opportunity to see a special film in a very special place. Okay, we have everyone back at the table now. Just picking up and jump in when you feel the urge. You talked about that bell curve. What does that middle of the bell curve need?
The murky middle. They need the structures that have been provided for them. They need to understand what they are and how to access those services. They need the support of the community around them, not just the veneration of the community. They need real support. And they need to feel like they're a part of something. I think this idea, this truism, I think that they need a mission to help them figure out where they're going with their life. This new return life is important.
I guess you could say everybody needs that
Sure.
to some degree, but maybe those who've been in the service they've got a taste of that, of knowing your
Right.
mission.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's hard to go back to not having it.
But you can find another. You can find another mission. In 1945, General Wainwright wrote a letter to all service members discharging, and I don't remember all the words of the letter, but it's a famous letter now, and he essentially said, hey, veterans, you've seen what it's like when you're not responsible for your own society. You've been over there and you've seen what happens to these societies. Fix it. Be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. It was not, hey, veterans, you're all broken, you're disabled in some way. It was, veterans, you are the leaders of this society. Get in there and get to work.
Well, and as you said, in our current generation, it's oftentimes the cream of the crop that volunteers.
They
too.
are the cream crop, and then they come out of service, and somehow they get wrapped. Not all. We get wrapped in this disability idea, and they get lost in it.
And I only say this generation because the previous generations didn't have a choice whether or not they went to war. What is education play a role in this conversation we're having tonight?
Sure.
Yes.
I think it's a very important role. You know, speaking for myself, getting out, just having the background of the military police, the recruiting school, when I was Air Force, the Air Force piece of it. First, being scared to go to school, which I run into a lot with my veterans, myself included. You realize once you get out the importance of the education, and then you try and figure out, how do I do this? And that's where the VA and their voc rehab really plays a big part in paying for school.
Where does the GI Bill come in? Is it still relevant? Is it up to date?
I think it is still relevant, and I know we have encouraged our clients to use the GI Bill, because if you were infantry or you were, doing something that you didn't want or could not transfer into the work world civilian, then go back to school, use the GI Bill. We ask when they come, have you used your GI Bill? No, I haven't done that yet. Okay, well,
There's still a time limit
there's
on
still
here,
a time, right?
There is. So previous to 2009, only about 50% of veterans were using their GI Bill benefits. Since the new post 9/11 GI Bill has come into existence, and there's been a long, hard push about this, about 70% are now using their GI Bill benefits. But if a veteran doesn't use their benefits within 2 years, the chances of them using it in the remainder goes down dramatically. You got to do it fairly quick.
Well, it's awareness.
It's
Making
awareness.
the veteran aware you have this benefit. A lot of them forget that they paid into it. They forget they're able to use it, and it goes away.
The other thing is, I think you hit on top of it, people, they're scared, right? Even if you're the sharpest high school student and you joined the service, volunteered, joined the service, and you got out after 4 years, you haven't done a math class in 4 years. And you're scared. It's true, right?
Or you
And
haven't figured out
college
what you
level
wanna
math
do.
is,
Yeah.
and you come to the university, a research university, they're not messing around. And no one wants to be embarrassed. So you got to work with veterans, and we run a transition course for veterans to help them do that. But we've found at UMSL that if you can get a veteran to their 3rd semester, they're going to graduate. But it's those first 2 semesters, there's a transition, there's math and English, and there's people on campus who may or may not agree with what they think or what they've done, and it's a tough couple of semesters. But if you can get into that 3rd, they're reintegrated with society, they're integrated with the campus, and
Found a new structure.
They found the structure. They
Or
probably
created the structure that someone wasn't creating for them,
right.
perhaps.
They probably found a faculty member, a staff member to help them that they made a connection to, and they're moving on.
I know
It's very
UMSL has kind of paved the way. When I was at Maryville putting together a VA group, other veterans, we went to UMSL and they have.
Cut you off there, but only to hold you up for 1 second. We're going to continue to have more questions online. Stay tuned, .9net.org. But for On Air, we're out of time. Thanks, and until next week, stay tuned.
Wow, that was.
Well, it's amazing.
Hold 1 second. I want to defer to the gentlemen who are on the outside edge of the table here, because you've had a minute to think about what we talked about and what everybody else has talked about. What's come to mind since we last talked about 58 minutes
Well,
ago?
if you mean by education, stories, then veterans are full of stories that need to be told or written down or interviewed because they have learned something invaluable that needs to be passed on to the next generation or it will be lost forever. And it will have to be relearned by the next generation, maybe in combat, okay? So we have these stories and we have a propensity of veterans to not write them down and to tell them to only a few trusted people. But the lessons learned in those stories need not and should not be lost to this country because they're going to be repeated again. And that's where my passion is to help capture those stories. And you don't have to be a writer. You can be interviewed. I'm a part of the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. And I've been interviewed and now I'm in their collection. So my story, for whatever it's worth, is preserved, right? And we don't have enough veterans telling their story. I learned so much from my veterans group, real life, meaningful, important life lessons from their experiences. And they tell them to me, but they won't write them down. And I want to find the key to help them unlock that story.
I'm afraid that these veterans coming home today are going through the same cycle that Vietnam veterans went through. They came home, they said, I'm all right, I'm gonna get on with my life and put that behind them, you know. And it's gonna catch up with them, you know, eventually. It's gonna catch up with them, you know, and hopefully it's, you know, it's before they seek help, before they either try to harm themselves or, you know, but I don't see that I don't see it's broken, you know. There needs to be something there, you know.
And it's not just those you said maybe had a trauma in their service.
But what we may be hearing some hard wisdom that I just don't have yet, and I would defer to it because I hope that's not the case. We're working hard in this generation for that not to be the case, but you know, maybe we may be a little naive. We need to keep working hard.
Keep focusing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely don't have it conquered. And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hope the VA
I'm just
doesn't get
afraid that they're going to be like us, you know.
Yeah.
When I say us, Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything from the veterans before you, the World War II guys? Was there any connection, any bond there that anybody in your life?
I had uncles in the service and everything, but they didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Anybody from the previous generation that you learned anything from?
I have a great-grandfather who was a corporal in, a Confederate corporal in the 63rd Georgia Infantry, and my mother's great-grandfather was a cavalry major in Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. My namesake entered as a school teacher, and because of his experience in the Battle of Atlanta and being wounded and so forth, and being forced to witness the execution of a deserter, when he came out, he became a Primitive Baptist minister. So I found his letters by accident doing genealogy and read them and transcribed them and published them for the family. And they are remarkably like my letters from Vietnam. He wrote poetry and he told jokes, Civil War jokes, okay? And so that tradition is there, and it's been helpful to me. I have that connection.
Plus, I was telling him I'm going to have him come in and want him to come talk to my guys in my program and just encourage them of how therapeutic it is to write these things down, to let it out. And that's, you get a lot of them that are scared to death to put a pen to paper. And I have no idea
rightfully
why.
so. And I understand that, but you know, I just decided I'm tired of being drugged. You know, I'm in a zombie in a fog. I spent 7 months living in India on a quest to learn yoga and see if that could help heal me.
Mindfulness.
And I did that. And I spent 6 months at the ashram, and that was the longest extended time of peace I had up until that time in my life. It's an artificial environment, but it helped me. And it didn't include doctors, and it didn't include drugs, and it didn't include a belief system or a religion. It was a technology that's 3,000 years old. It's called meditation and yoga.
The client I had from Vietnam, he told me, gosh, a couple weeks ago, I've not had a good night's sleep since 1971.
That's the
now
common.
He's starting, he feels as though now with participating in these groups and doing some of the things that they're having them do, a lot of the mindfulness that you're talking about, exercises, he's able to start sleeping a little more.
I want to, bridge on top of that. We talk a lot about the issues, and the growth and the ways that we can overcome these challenges. But, come back to your point. We're facing challenges, sure, but we have the ability as a country to see these challenges that veterans are facing and to say that it's making them weaker. We have the ability to say that this is a broken generation. That's not the case. What's amazing about this generation of veterans is what we're learning is that these challenges that we've faced is making us stronger, right? We're more resilient. And we're not just bouncing back to where we were before, but we're stronger because of it. And so it's through writing, through introspection, through this work that all of us can continue to grow stronger and really just leave that legacy for this generation. Right?
I think with the Salvation Army, one of the things that we found is that our volunteer corps is made up of a lot of veterans. So the mission does continue, and that they've joined the Salvation Army in helping us to meet human needs in His name without discrimination. They see us on the front lines during the time of disaster, whether we're, serving the first responders coffee, or if we're at a shelter or providing substance abuse treatment. And when we look at our volunteer corps, we have a strong veteran base that supports us in our mission. And so I echo what you say. It has
given
made
that
some of
purpose.
them very strong and given them purpose. And I look even at my husband, who, he comes to volunteer for the Salvation Army when I make him, yes, but he's also a volunteer coach and has spent his life from the time he was in the military to right now coaching girls basketball and helping them get scholarships to go to school and keeping them in positive activities and traveling out of the state and all that stuff. So veterans find a new mission and help us to build a stronger country, active duty and after their active service. So.
Now let me plug for St. Patrick's Center.
We'll give St. Patrick's Center the last word, since we did not get listen, we have to marshal our resources carefully here. This is public television. And the next show will be at the St. Patrick's Center.
You got to come to Freedom Place.
Freedom Place.
But
yeah.
the Salvation Army and St. Patrick's Center have a very strong partnership.
yeah.
We really do. We share clients. We know we have to leverage resources. When they receive the HVRP funds that we did not have, we sent our veterans, go over there and get signed up so you can get those HVRP funds. Right. So we work together.
We'll leave it there to let the crew go.
Okay.
We appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
And I don't mean this in a patronizing way. Thanks for your service. Thanks for your service that you're continuing to do and that you did tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You didn't use the word hero. So.